Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our second BokSmart Facebook Live session. Today we're going to talk about a topic of concussion in rugby. Now, there's so much to talk about concussion, we're not going to get it all done in one session. But I would like to welcome our esteemed panel of guests here today, starting with two of our Blitzbox stars over here, Siabela Sanatla and Carl Brown, who are taking time off their very busy schedule, getting ready for this weekend and hopefully bring the cup back to South Africa. And introducing first over here, Mr. Clint Reedhead, who's the Senior Manager Medical at the African Rugby Union. Clint has also been the part of the 2007 World Cup winning Springbok squad as a physiotherapist at the time. Dr. Lee Gordon, who is our Springbok medical doctor for the Sevens group, has been involved in for about 2.5 years. And has been specializing in concussion management for the last 5.5 years, with a special interest at schools in educating parents, teachers and staff. Siabela over here, just to give some stats over there. Siabela, a man all the way from Welkom nogal. A small team placed in the Northern Free State over there. Now also a Currie Cup champion with Western Province. Well done on that. Has played 34 tournaments with 173 matches and has scored 196 tries, which is a massive amount. Carl, I'm sure you're going to try and get there somewhere.
One day.
He not only brings speed and tries to the team, but also has some of the best dance moves you will find.
Yeah.
I hear this, but he's going to have to compete with Clinton's moonwalk.
Carl? My introduction is like, and Carl, a rugby player.
Carl is a self-confessed coffee aficionado and is known to be able to build his own computers, which I don't think many of us can say that. Yeah, he's played 59 tournaments, 291 matches, and has scored 79 tries in a rugby career that started at Sachs High School, but he won't hold that against him.
Yeah.
On my right here, JD, or Tungile Jadazweni, who is an international test referee of 2 tests, has been involved in Super Rugby since 2014 and in the Currie Cup as a panel referee since 2015. Recently also in the Pro 14 as an AR with the new Pro 14 tournament going on. And also is on our Elite Premier panel, and due to the Sevens happening as well, also has been since 2012 on our Sevens World Series AR panel. So welcome everybody, and thank you for giving your time to have this really welcome discussion on concussion. Now today we're not going to get to everything specifically. There's so much to talk around concussion, but it's really important that we get just a basic overview for our viewers, just to get an understanding of what it's about. So Clint and Lee, can you just give us a really simplified version of what is concussion? What do we need to look for? How do people actually know what is a concussion?
Okay, sure. First up, I think it's very important that the listeners out there understand that a concussion is a brain injury. Concussions occur via either a direct blow to the head or an indirect blow such as a whiplash injury, and it results in a temporary disturbance to brain function. So you'll find that the person who suffers a concussion may have balance problems, they may have memory problems, they might have well-documented symptoms like nausea, a headache, those type of things. So in a really brief summary, that really is what a concussion is.
Is it easy to identify? Is it something that one just picks up, look and say, okay, I suspect there's a concussion? So how would I, as a coach, teacher, referee, anybody involved in the game, say, okay, now I suspect a concussion? What would I look for, Lee?
So on the field, there's some obvious signs that you're looking for. Obviously, everyone thinks about loss of consciousness as a sign of concussion, but it's important to remember that only about 10% of concussions have a loss of consciousness. So if you're knocked out, if you have that dazed look, and we know it well on when the guys are knocked out and they're coming up, they have the deer in the headlights look. Sometimes you can have some more serious injuries. You can have a seizure on the pitch, which can be an indication of a concussion. So there's several things on the pitch that one's looking for. When they come off, they can also be complaining about nausea, headaches. They can get quite light sensitive and noise can bother them, and quite fatigued, and then generally just feeling that they're not right. So kind of feeling like their brain is in a fog and just really slowed down. So those are some of the symptoms that we'd be looking for.
Well, and I'd just like to say there as well, though, so Lee highlighted those signs and symptoms and what you look for. But you actually got to educate yourself with regards to what those signs and symptoms are. And I'd recommend, the responsibility is not only for coaches and referees and the medical staff, it's parents and players as well. So I'd recommend everybody at least get to a website such as the BokSmart website and go and find out what's available on there and actually educate yourself on what those signs and symptoms are. That's important.
Yeah, so I'd definitely like to second that. I mean, as far as the symptoms, I mean, the list is a very long list of symptoms, and I think that the best thing that you could do as a player is educate yourself on those symptoms because they're so specific to you. As I actually get a tingling on my skin if I raise my heart rate when I have a concussion, which is completely specific to me. And I get a feeling in a fog quite a lot. I don't have the sensitivity to light or sound that a lot of people do, and I don't get nauseous either. And a lot of people say, well, you're not concussed then, But my symptoms are very specific to myself, and the only way that I know what they are is by educating myself on that list of what's happening to my body around that time, and then I can identify with them and say, maybe I'm not quite feeling the way I should be.
Fantastic. Now, as a medical doctor, do you spend time with the players and educating them on specifics or around what concussion symptoms are and if they sensitize them to that?
Yeah, so I spend time with the squad at least once a year, educating them about signs and symptoms, what to expect, what are the things that put them at risk. And for the guys, I know what they're like in their normal day to day. So I also have the benefit of knowing when they're not acting quite normally, and behavioural changes can be an indication of concussion. I spend time teaching them about concussion so that they can also recognise it in their teammates. Also teaching them about how we do, or educating them about how we manage the concussion. So once you've got a concussion, what do we do with it, and how can you expect to be managed after that? So also that they've got realistic expectations of how soon they're going to be back on the pitch.
Okay, fantastic points all round. Now, we hear a lot about suspected concussions and confirmed concussions. What is the differentiation between the two? What is the difference between a suspected concussion and a confirmed concussion? And in practice on the field, do we manage them differently? Or should they be managed differently?
That's a tricky question.
Start with you, Clint.
Well, I was going to say, let's go back down to the basic level of where the game's played, schoolboy and club level. Now, most school games and club games don't have doctors on the sideline. But they've got coaches and referees who could identify concussion along what we just spoke about, the signs and symptoms. So 9 out of 10 times when you see a player who complains of a headache, or they taking a bang, get up and they stumble, you got to say, well, that could potentially be a sign of concussion, so you suspect concussion. And then the rule kicks in at that level. You immediately remove the player from the field of play, and that player then must go and see their doctor. So at that level of the game, recognise, remove kicks in, and you suspect concussion with a high level of suspicion, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
At the elite level of the game, it tends to be a little bit more medical staff around, and there are more processes that are involved in sort of trying to manage that process differently. But at the end of the day, you don't treat a suspected concussion and a concussion any differently. If you play with a concussion or suspect a concussion, they must leave the field of play immediately.
And in terms of the management thereafter, would that be treated the same?
So they're going to be same in terms of your initial management, which is resting them and putting them into a graded return to sport protocol, which we have to follow. Obviously, with a confirmed concussion, if you know that you've got symptoms that you're following up on, it actually might be a much longer process before they can get back to playing, because those symptoms are going to take longer to settle. But essentially, you're still going to follow the same process by going through a graded return, which is a graduated protocol of increasing activity and checking that you don't get any symptoms on those. So
if we look at concussion, it's got a delay. Some people have a delayed response. They won't necessarily have immediate symptoms, but it might come a bit later. Have you had some experience in that, Carl?
Yeah, I think that obviously when you get knocked out, my skin doesn't start tingling immediately. It's actually during my graded return to sponsor that I'll know that if I'm still experiencing that kind of symptom. I don't know why it's that one very specific to me, that if I start raising my heart rate, then I start to get very sensitive on the surface of my skin, which is something very specific to me. And the one thing I want to talk about, that recognize and remove thing, is regardless of what level you're playing at, there is no consequence or outcome of a game that is more important than the safety and the health of your brain. I think that we have to keep stressing that, because I realize that, like, at school level, club level, at national level, we all feel like, it's the end of the world if we come off the field, but it's not. You know, I mean, I think in my personal experience, I was concussed in Hong Kong. Then we came home, and then I got those 3 light knocks at practices, but small ones, nothing serious. I wasn't knocked out or anything like that. And the management, especially the coach, took the decision that he wasn't going to risk me, and he was looking after my future interests of of my health, of my brain health. And I was distraught. I was really upset. I thought it was unfair to me. It was selfish, and when you take a moment to reflect, you must understand you've got people around you that are just there to care for you. And I think so often we are so narrow-minded on just the game, and we have to remember that it's just sport. It's just a game of rugby, and if you get taken out for a little bit, just look after the future of your health. I think that can only be positive for the players.
I think, sorry, to add to that, I don't think just your health, but your game as well, because what good are you if you're not functioning properly? Then you literally, do more as in the level of the team. So I think it's for the best for everyone.
So from a performance point of view, if you've got 7 players, especially in sevens, if one player is not functioning properly on the field, you're pretty much exposed.
100%, and I think it's important that you not look at it as in a light of just your health, but also again performance. You're not going to be pretty much on your ball like you always are.
So from a player team culture perspective, not putting you on the spot at all, but are players generally quite honest when they take a knock on the head and they're not quite lacquer? Will they tell the medical staff and give them the honest fact, or will they try and push through it and push on?
Generally, I think it's not. We're not quite honest with that. I know I took a knock like way back when I was 17 or whatever, and I haven't actually got a concussion-based injury after that. But that time, luckily for me, I was blacked out, and I didn't have mouth guard as well. So I was blacked out, and my teeth were literally clashed against each other, and had teeth problems after that. But blacked out, and then luckily for me, I didn't play after that, so I could actually recover from that. But we normally don't actually say it's the doctors, and which is really a bad thing, because automatically think I must push through this, push that. But like you're hurting yourself, and we don't really see that.
I think also to remember that a lot of the people around us that just keep preaching things like cowboys don't cry.
Yeah.
You've got to be tough, and you've got to be hard, and rugby's a tough man's sport, and you get up, it's just a knock kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's not just a knock, it's different, and you know full well as a player, when it's not just a knock. And you definitely go into denial because you want to be seen to be tough, you want to be seen to be, I'm a physical player, but often it's not anything you did wrong. It could just be the situation that you were caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something happens. And it's not any form of weakness to say I'm not feeling normal. There's no sense in he's not a good enough player now that he didn't push through, that kind of thing. This is the health of your brain down the line. And I think that's what's difficult for a player. It's not tangible at the time. It's not a broken leg. You can actually get up. And if you steady yourself for 30 seconds, you kind of feel like you could go on again. And that's the biggest problem with it, is that you might have those delayed symptoms that you only get, you get home back to the hotel that evening and you start vomiting or something like that, or you feel dizzy. So it's definitely an education thing, and I think it takes a lot for a teammate to step up and say, listen, but I can see full well you're not right, get off the field. And I'm 30 now, and I won't hesitate to do that. But 3-4 years ago, there's a good chance that I might have hesitated. And somebody would come up to me and said, I just took a big knock. I said, okay, well, let's just see how you feel. Let's go through it. Now I don't care. I'll actually walk up to the referee if I must, and I'll stop the game. I don't mind. Because my friend's safety and his long-term health is a lot more important than whatever's going to happen on that field at any point.
So there's a fantastic culture shift happening in players at the moment, back from that old school tough it up.
We had a long discussion about all the protocols around everything, but the protocols only go as far as the player's honesty. So the protocols are there for when a player's honest. If a player's not honest, those protocols can do nothing. Suspected concussion is one thing, but if I'm going to say, just tough it out, hang in there, there's a huge difference there, and I care a lot more for him right now than I do about the result of the game that we're in. That I'll tell him, get off the field, it's not worth it. And I suppose also that side, that he's not going to be as good.
Cool. JD.
Just to touch on what he's saying, it makes our job that much easier when a player actually comes up to us and says, listen, I'm not feeling well, or my teammate is not feeling well, is there something that you can do? Me as a referee, I can then, call the medics over and say, please have a look at him, or, I can clearly see, from the guides that are being taught in the BokSmart course that, this guy's he's not fit to play, and we can have him removed.
Clint, you've had a couple of experiences of that recently as well, with players have stepped up.
100%. Not to mention any names, but in the recent test match that was just played at Newlands, we had 2 players, both of them individually called their medicon, noted that they weren't feeling great, took themselves off and with a concussion. So that just shows me, Carl, what you're saying. There's a culture change which is starting to take place. It's been slow, but it's starting to happen. And I always say, no player ever wants to come off the field. The player wants to play. So when the player starts complaining of a headache or not feeling great, they're telling you they've got a problem, and you've got to listen to their problem, so get them off. And as Siabella pointed out, you stay on, it affects performance. There's dangers of sort of things like second impact syndrome if we don't get you off and manage you properly. And even when we do manage a concussion properly, the research shows us that 60% of persons who suffer concussions can suffer a second time loss injury when they go back to play. So concussion is serious. You've got to take it seriously. You've got to take the management seriously. So I like what the lads are saying.
Before I come back to JD, back to you as players, do you guys as players do anything to try and prevent concussions? Obviously, you got to look after yourself. So when you're going into contact situations, it's quite a dynamic, uncontrollable environment that you're in. But is there things that you guys do in practice, in training, to try and prevent a concussive episode on the field?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you can do. Obviously, what Carl's saying as well, rugby is quite a man's sport, as they call it. So most of the time, we measure attitude and try to converse it with technique. And most of the time, people say attitude is the winner, but we tend to think differently and say actually technique is quite important than attitude. Because if you learn how to tackle properly, then you actually minimize the risk of getting something like a concussion. And we do a whole lot of drills like that at training as well. They might not be intense, but it's all for your safety. And things like neck strengthening also can help you. And I think the biggest one would be fitness. Right, Carl? Because, yeah, that just minuses the fatigue. And I think mostly tackles are made poorly when you're fatigued because you're tired and you can't move properly. So
I think you got to stress habit, good habits the whole time. Mm-hmm. I know one thing we do a lot. As soon as we play any form of dynamic drill, if there's any high tackle, Neil sends one of us off. Well, that player that made the high tackle. So you've got to learn the consequence of something like that. Firstly, making a high tackle, it's wrong. So you can't just be that it lets it happen in the practice session, so that it follows through into the game. So it's good habits the whole time. Tackle technique and then fitness is one thing. So we just make sure that you're able to think through those contact situations every single time and not flopping into the contact situation where you're either going to catch a knee or a hip randomly because you're not in the right position.
So you work on head position into the contact, right shoulder, right head position, that type of thing. Head up, so
you see what happens all the time. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic to hear that the top guys on the blitz box are doing exactly what's necessary.
That's also great for completing a good tackle. So often we spoke about if you dip too early, somebody could just step and you'd be blind to the step either. And we try bend in obviously in the knees and stop bending, hinging in the hips, that you just fall forward at the person's feet and all of a sudden they're not there anymore.
Fantastic, especially your game.
In the sevens you can't afford to have that. Okay, JD, coming to you. As a referee, what is it that you do as a referee to identify and manage on-field concussions or suspected concussions? I mean, what role do you have as a referee have to play in this space?
Okay, firstly, Wayne, as a referee, before I can even get onto the field, I need to be educated. I need to do a BokSmart course, right? Within that course, like I mentioned earlier, there'll be concussion guides. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what in depth what a concussion is and what have you not. But we must be able to identify when a player is possibly concussed, and you know, since we are in the mix of, we're in the thick of things, it's easier for us as a referee to pick up if a player, you know, has actually gotten a knock to the head. You can, you know, either see as he goes into contact or post contact, you know, a player lying face first on the ground or wobbling as he gets up, and you know, those type of things.
Fantastic. So as a referee, you're watching the game quite intricately. So when a medical staff comes on, when the guy's lying on the ground, you know, would you share that information with the medical staff? Because the player might be all of a sudden absolutely fine, but when he took the knock, he might have been knocked out or lying still, or you saw the mechanism of injury.
Yeah.
Would you relay that information over to the medics?
No, definitely. I'll definitely relay the message. It's extra information, and it's my job as a referee. I need to ensure player safety. I mean, if Lee doesn't know that Carl got a knock to the head, it's my duty to let her know, so that she can make an informed decision as to what the next step is, and you know, to see whether the player needs to stay on or get off the field.
So do you find that is quite a useful, like, additional information that you need?
I think it's key, because you can't see, often your view is obstructed by players, or so to have someone who's watching directly to have seen exactly what happened, because sometimes your symptoms do only last for 10-15 seconds, but just because they lasted for a few seconds only doesn't make it any less of a concussion. There's still a concussion, and even if they lasted, if they were dazed for, you know, as you were saying, as you get up and you're all wobbly, that there's a confirmed concussion there. So
and that's useful information that you can work on.